Hey everyone, this is Real Estate Riches Podcast, and boy, is it going to be rich, full of the wealth and the tips and the tricks of all kinds of successful agents, because that's what you want to be, right? A business builder who has success in their business. Well, that's what we got going on here. And I'm going to have all kinds of agents, men, women, young or older, sharing all their stuff because there's technology, there's just how do you build your business? There's so many questions, right? So let's learn from some of the best. Gather your wealth and build your business. That's what this channel is all about. And I'm excited to bring it to you. I'm Kathy Byrnes and I'll be your host. And stay tuned. Let's get at it, right? Hey everybody, I'm Kathy Byrnes and I'm here with Nick Green today. Really excited to be talking to him. Here he is out in New York City and he's got a whole unique territory to work. Successful, gives back. Love this concept of how this agent has grown his business. Roots in the city there that may or may not have helped, and we'll discover some of that. So, hey, Nick, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Kathy.
I'm really glad you're here. So tell me, Nick, tell us a little story about your background. How'd you start? What's the story?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. However, both of my parents were from New York. My dad went to law school in Cambridge and ended up being a district attorney there and a lawyer there for many years. So they kind of set up shop there. However, both their parents, my grandparents, and all my cousins and uncles and aunts, mostly all of them stayed in New York, close to the city. So New York's really where my roots are, even though I was
Mhm. Of
Boston raised and still loyal to all the sports teams, obviously, in Boston, but always
course.
always had some cousins, giving me smack talk. But yeah, anyway, I've always been interested in sales, and real estate just seemed like it had the highest ceiling for me. And I just enjoy real estate. I love to care about where people live, and I care about New York City. I've been living in New York since I graduated college in 2011. And yeah, I just have a lot of roots here. My grandfather came over here when he was 19 years old in the 1940s. And yeah, my grandmother on the other side was a big player in the fashion industry here for many
Mhm.
years. So like I have these great New York City roots, and I
Did it help you? Did it help you when you got into the business, having all those roots?
it definitely didn't hurt. I mean, yeah, I work with family members. I
Sure.
have people,
I thought maybe with
referrals.
connections and stuff, father being an
Yeah.
attorney, different people, just lots of connections. Like, yeah, my son's a realtor. Go check him out.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely grateful for everything, my family, my
Did
immediate family, and extended family. So,
did you do much investments of your own? Is that a piece of your business?
yeah, I mean that's been more recent, just because I've had access to more capital recently. But yeah, I've always been. So my roommate in New York for many years was doing when Airbnb first got started. My roommate and some of my close friends would do rental arbitrage. They would
Mm-hmm.
lease a 3 bedroom apartment. 3 to 4 bedroom was their bread and butter. They would pay, 5, 6 grand, 7 grand a month in rent, and then they
Wow.
would put it on Airbnb for close to $1,000 a night. So the returns on that were incredible, and they eventually let me get in it too. So those were like the heydays of New York City Airbnb, short-term rentals. Everybody was crushing it. And then eventually the city cracked down.
No more.
And yeah, no, there were safety issues. We even had issues with neighbors in our buildings that, they were jealous that we were making money, and
Sure.
also they didn't want like tourists on in their lobby every day with suitcases. Like, there were safety issues
Yeah.
obviously as well. And yeah, and then of course there's the hotel lobby, which is very powerful. And
Sure.
New York City, they definitely had New York's ear. So these
Sure.
days, Airbnb is not really a thing here. However, there are pockets of the country that it is. So
Right.
I invested in Miami, Florida, through actually that same roommate friend who had moved down there years earlier.
Uh-huh.
And so I bought a duplex down there that sleeps 16 people that I Airbnb. So Yeah, that was the first house I ever purchased.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know what arbitrage is like that. And I'm in a BNI group this morning, a gal who was in there who does property management, and she does her own arbitrage. So basically, you're renting, just like you said your roommates did, somebody else's property. And then you're jacking up the price. Even if you, let's say it wasn't like what you just said, 5,000 a month, and then you charged 1,000 a night. She's doing short-term rentals as well, but she's even doing midterm rentals. So, which is becoming an even more popular thing I'm finding because you're not getting so much heat from the neighbors, the different scenarios like that. And there are people that do want, like, especially in New York or coming to Florida, they're coming for the season, right? So that's a
Mhm.
midterm renter right there. So you give them the opportunity to arbitrage one of your condos or whatever, or house or whatever that's allowed, and you can make some serious money on that still, right?
Totally, totally. And it's not easy to find a landlord that's cool with it. And
Mm-hmm.
in New York, we were definitely not telling the landlord what was going on. We had some issues with that as well. Like one of them, we had like a some Airbnb tenant in the first week who rented on Airbnb, and they had a newborn baby, and there was like a specific clause in the building that like you're not supposed to have young children there, and the
Mm.
landlord saw it and was like, wait, you don't have any kids. I just saw you just signed the lease last week and there were no, you said you didn't have any kids. And
Oh,
so the smaller landlords who were like checking on their buildings, those were the ones that were harder to get around. um,
yeah.
but
Well,
these
that makes
days,
sense.
yeah, these days it's talked about amongst real estate agents. So back then it was just kind of like, don't tell, like we're don't tell them what we're doing, but we want, this property's perfect. Now we're very forward. Like,
It's
is this
better.
short term rental? Yeah, can we Airbnb here? It's very upfront and to the point. Listen, my investor wants to get this cash flow. Can this be done here? What
Sure.
do you think? So it's Airbnb is a verb now. Can we Airbnb it?
Mm.
It's way different than it was when we were first doing.
Well, and it's
Um,
better. It's grown, it's evolved, and it's got more ethical.
totally. So the house I purchased in Miami, it was actually at the time I purchased it, there was a tenant in there, and
Mm-hmm.
that tenant was doing Airbnb rental arbitrage. And the landlord, the owner of the house, the previous owner of my house, was cool with that. He was getting his 7K a month in rent,
Yeah.
and he was happy with it as long as the house didn't burn down and there were no issues. So
Yeah.
the Airbnb tenant who was running this Airbnb business was probably making 10 to 12K a month. So it was, a win-win for everybody. The landlord was
Mm-hmm.
getting his rent. And so anyway, I ended up buying the house and took it over, obviously owning it, and hired my friend's company to manage it for me. So
Mm.
it's a successful Airbnb, and I give 20% of the revenue to this management company who I trust and have great
Sure.
rapport with. And to me, it's great cash flow, and
Yeah.
it's
Let's talk about that 20%. Would you say that's a normal fee for management? Because I've heard it go from 10 to 30, depending on, I don't know what.
so for short-term rental management, which
Hmm.
requires a lot of work because
A
there's
lot of work.
constantly check-ins and there's different tiers of management too. So these guys do
Hmm.
everything. They do everything with their thumbs on the Airbnb app. They do everything with the maintenance. I never get,
Yes.
I don't get bothered at all unless there's some sort of major issue, but it's
Right.
very rare. And
Hmm.
so for that, I'm paying 20%, which is significant, but I
But
don't have to
still,
lift a finger. Yeah,
yeah,
the longer term rentals, not short term Airbnb rentals, those are less. You have to pay 10%, 5% of the annual
right.
lease, maybe up to 15 if it's really like 3 or 6 month rentals. But to answer your question, I think it's based on the market too.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Miami's a very busy market,
Mm.
and I would expect them to charge higher fees in an area where you're doing a lot
Sure.
more
Bigger
business.
demand.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no.
Now it's interesting because I just read an article about Miami specifically and
Mhm.
their Airbnbs that there are so many going on the market because the market's changed there. So I don't know if it's because of insurance, people aren't doing it. And it was a pretty significant article about how many properties were going to be liquidated. Have you heard anything like that?
So the laws in Miami right now are
Mhm.
they're cracking down for sure. So there's only certain zoning that will legally let you do Airbnb.
Right.
So my house is in a T4 zone, which is a commercial zone, which
Oh,
I knew when I bought and I paid a premium for to have that peace of mind that it was going to be an illegal zone to do it.
oh,
However, there's still tons of operators that have T3 illegally zoned illegal
mm,
Airbnbs in Miami. There's so many, honestly, might even be the majority of the ones listed are
hmm.
illegal.
But
And
when they first bought it, it wasn't right. It's that they changed the laws after the fact, or no?
not necessarily, not
Oh,
necessarily. It could be they bought it and the previous owner was getting away with it, so and they continue to get away with it, or they
but it
just
was a
played
risk
dumb.
that they took. It was a
Yeah,
risk that
yeah.
they took, right?
Yeah, but it's a very lucrative risk and there's high reward with, you'll get fined, but the first fine's probably minimal compared to what the kind of money you're bringing in. So the ones I see get shut down though are more the ones that there's like parties or someone gets
Oh,
injured and the police get involved and then that's when they're like, well, this property actually shouldn't have been an Airbnb in the first place, so we're going to shut it down. But unless
hmm,
there's an issue like that, they don't have the manpower to really shut down all these
hmm.
illegal Airbnbs.
And then
Um,
worst case scenario, the owner simply could sell the house or rent it out long term, right?
yeah, yeah, of course, and they're building equity. I mean, single family in Miami has been very strong. The condo market, not as much, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, their equity is definitely building up, and I'm a strong believer it will continue to do so for over the course of the decade and
I
past
think
that.
so too. But the condo equity is not as much, right? But there's tons of condos. Is it there's not as much demand for the condos? That surprises me.
So that's more recent.
Mm,
And the year after, there's not really a firm ending to COVID. I guess people are still getting
right.
COVID. But anyway, like the heart of the pandemic and a year after, condos were still very hot in Miami. It's definitely cooled down. The part of that is the Surfside collapse. They
Oh, that
had,
building. I forgot about
yeah.
that.
So that building, that's tragedy, terrible tragedy happened. And
Horrible. Yeah.
after that, Senate passed a law, I believe it's called D4, that requires condo buildings to fund 2 years of assessments ahead of time. So, therefore, it's not as much of a problem for the affluent, the wealthier ones, but the smaller condo buildings with lower price points have definitely been affected because these people have to have huge assessments now to fund to fund everything because of this law.
Boy.
And
Yeah.
then also inventory. So to transition, New York stopped giving out tax abatements to developers. So
Really?
all these developers have come down to Florida and are currently building.
Oh,
So you're having a ton of new condo buildings being built around the Miami area, more inventory coming on as we speak. And yeah, you're getting tons of more condos on the market. You have a
mm-hmm.
lot of the older ones that are selling because the people can't afford to fund the assessments.
Right.
And then, yeah, you have all this new construction. Many part of Miami is going to look like Manhattan a little bit. Like the Brickell
Mm,
area, it's going to be super dense. And therefore, like Miami, you're selling water views. New York, you don't really care as much about a water view.
right.
So there's only a handful of Miami projects that are like actually they may have a water view now, but like
Mm-hmm.
in a few years when they'll build 500 buildings around it,
Yeah.
they won't have it. So yeah, like I'm not that bullish on Miami condos because of that, unless they're like guaranteed right on the water,
Sure.
and
Which
the
makes
view
sense.
is going to be intact. So yeah.
So let me ask you this. How do you feel like AI and all this technology is going to change our industry?
So that's a good question. Compass, my brokerage, has been using AI for years. Since
Yeah,
they
us
said like
too.
since 2017, it's a really high tech brokerage. So, and personally, I've been using it for less, only for a couple of years. We actually have
Hmm.
an integration in our Compass app where we can contact ChatGPT very easily and help us
Hmm.
do whatever we need to do. Also, image generation, now even video generation. It's all going to
Yeah.
be, incorporated in what we do. It saves a ton of time. Even on all these Zoom calls, my colleagues have these AI note takers.
Yeah.
It says, yeah. So it's just, I think it's just going to make our lives easier. And there'll always be the naysayers that are like, oh, it's going to replace real estate agents and all this tech. And they said that about the internet too. But like, the top agents are always going to,
The
they're
truth
always going
is, it'll replace agents that don't do tech. It'll replace them because they'll be lost.
to, right.
If they don't pay attention to this tech, especially this kind of tech, they will be lost. And I'm a lot older than you, but I see so many agents, seasoned agents, that are just lost in the whole concept of tech, period. And I'm trying to teach these agents like how to bring tech into your business. Your company, Compass, is a tech company. Mine, EXP, is a tech company. It's where you need to be if you want to exceed in this business and not just hang on by your fingernails. Don't you think?
100%.
Yeah,
Definitely.
100%. And it's a time saver, like you said. You can utilize it on your app. You can go on there and get all this information. You can even get content for doing different social media. You can lay it all out, video scripts, you name it. You can do it. Freaking love it.
Absolutely. There'll always be the agents that don't embrace change. And then those are mostly more negative people who have been doing this
Yes,
30 years. But
because
yeah,
there's a lot of talent in those agents, you know. But
right.
the truth is, the whole industry is changing. The world is changing as a result of it. That's what they need to embrace. It isn't just real
Mhm.
estate. Your world's it is changing at a rapid pace. You can't keep up with it. So if you're not paying attention to this in your business, you might as well retire now.
You're going to be obsolete for sure.
You are going to be obsolete. I think that was really good information about the arbitrage, Miami, New York. What would you say to an agent that's starting out in, well, let's say in this market, just because it's a tougher market, you do have to adapt, you do have to figure things out. What's some of your sage advice that you would be talking to an agent thinking about getting in this career or just hanging on because they've got to regroup?
I would just try to absorb, learn, find a mentor that you can shadow that was willing to let you listen into everything and just follow their day to day life, just to be a sponge.
Yeah,
Align yourself with the best people you can. A great team helps. Like, definitely join a team to
I agree.
start. Yeah, just like be around exceptional people that you have a lot of respect for, and people that are making money. And some people will look like they're successful and sound good, but you really have to dig deep and make sure that these are the people that are actually doing well, and
Right.
just absorb it.
I think it's so important when a new agent comes on. A lot of them just go solo because they think they'll make more money. Well, maybe you will, unless you might be a rock star who just out of the box you've got great sales skills, but you don't know the industry. So joining a team, if nothing else, it's but not just any team, just like you said, you've got to pick your team. You got to make sure that they make sense, that they're going to help you grow, that they're going to collaborate and share tools and tips. Because I've been with 5 different brokerages, and it wasn't until I came to EXP that I ever saw collaboration. Everybody was hiding all their secrets, and you're out there in the cold trying to figure it out. And I was never on a team till I joined EXP. And for me, it was more like a stage of life. And I'm like, take all this pressure off my back. Let me just join a team. And they let me run it like a boss. So that worked for me. But I
That's
agree.
awesome.
I
Yeah,
love the team goals.
one of our mottos at Compass is collaborate without ego. That's
Yes.
definitely, you know, and I'll never say, like, earlier in my life, people would want to introduce me to people for business, whatever. And I would be kind of, I got enough friends. I know enough people. I'm busy. Now I don't say no to a meeting. You never
Yeah.
know who you're going to know in common. Who cares if they sell Coca-Cola products and you sell real estate? Like there's going to be somebody, some sort of common ground that you can form, and that you're going to learn something about a new industry, and you'll be able to use that maybe with a client that you have in the
Right.
future. And so
Right.
that would be part of my advice, would be never say no to a meeting. In New York City, there's constantly ability to network, and there's so many different organizations and events, and
Mhm.
charities are great to be a part of. You're donating money to a good cause, and you're meeting affluent people that way. And
Mhm.
that's really, I would suggest like putting portions of the marketing budget towards that
I
versus
told,
sending out
don't you think it's a great idea to
postcards.
get on a board or do something where you're actually giving within that, whatever it is, the charity or whatever, because that's how you really get more intimate relationships.
Totally. It's such a win-win. You're meeting good, like-minded people. And I mean, I wouldn't say any charity, but like the good ones that you're passionate about, and other people are passionate about it too. And I
You just
totally
make great
recommend it.
connections. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
say
Because
take some of the money that you're spending on postcards and donate to a charity, and network with those people that are part of that charity.
you on a mission where you stay in touch with your past clients so you're keeping that relationship going?
Oh, absolutely. I Most of my clients end up being friends in some
Mhm.
capacity. And yeah, absolutely. And New York, everybody's busy. It's not like a small town vibe by any means. We're in touch. And if there's holiday parties or birthdays, milestones, of course I'm reaching out. But yeah, no, you don't really have the expectation to run into these people the same you would in a very small market where everyone knows
Yeah,
everyone.
right.
Um,
You have to be on purpose. I think you have to be on purpose anyway. I have a friend, he did the Mike Ferry thing forever, and he was a cold calling machine every single morning where he'd be doing a certain period of time. And he was very successful. And I even went to one of the events that they put on, and I could see everybody in there. They were focused, disciplined, and they made a ton of money doing that. But I saw that a lot of them did not do the follow up. They didn't maintain that clientele that they built. So they're still always calling. I'm like, oh my gosh. No, nurture those relationships, people. Right?
totally, totally.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Any last thing you'd love to touch on and share with somebody about being in this business?
I would say communication is key. Having rapport, look at other agents as your clients, because
Hmm.
having rapport with other agents is so important. Like we said, don't be able to collaborate and not have an ego about it. The more people you interact with daily, the better. And there's no stopping. There's this business is endless.
Yeah,
The sky is the limit.
it is.
If you're working on a $5 million deal or a $50 million deal, it's probably going to take you the same amount of time. It's like
Right.
really focus on what price point you're going after and what's obtainable. So
Hmm.
the
I
sky's
like
the
your
limit.
price points that your range was in, 5 to 50 million. That was sweet to me.
Or 500,000. The point is, like, almost every real estate deal takes the same amount of time.
It
So
does. I've
really,
always taught my agents that I've been training is I said, pay attention to your net. Look at the different pieces of the splits that are happening. So if you see like $1 million house, but all your splits end up being 50%, it's a $500,000 house. So you got to at least be looking for your $1 million properties and how you can find those. Do you know what I mean? Because if 200,000, forget about it, right? They probably don't even have that in New York City.
totally. And you're going to have to be a therapist for your clients as well, and have a
Yes.
sense of humor and just be a problem solver, because those are
Problem
all
solving.
three things that every real estate needs to be successful. So,
I agree. Thanks so much, Nick. This was wonderful. I
of
appreciate
course,
your insight on the arbitrage and Miami. We got lots of nuggets from you, and it was great. And I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
of course. Appreciate you having me, Kathy.
So thanks for joining me on this episode of Real Estate Riches. Wasn't that great? I'm sure you got a nugget or two. I know I did. So if you liked it, please subscribe below, share it with everybody, make some comments. We really find that invaluable. And if you're thinking that you would love to talk about this a little bit more, let's schedule a business strategy call. I'll have the link below. Let's see if we can't mastermind together and see if we can empower each other. That would be great. So until next time, signing off. Hope to see you on the next one.